We're live. Welcome to a very special episode of Let's Talk Broncos. You'll notice that there's 4 of us today. That's because Jason Bishop, an LTB contributor, writer, and jack of all trades, has blessed us with his presence tonight. Jason, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited for my first time on the show. Should be a good one. Excited to see how this draft goes. A lot of exciting candidates, so should be a good one. How are you guys doing?
I'm great. I can't be the only one surprised by how friggin' young Jason is. I see his NFL analysis, and I think he's 25 or whatever. I'm also glad because I'm no longer the baby. Like, that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
That's a plus for me. So
let's get it right. That's why you hired a bunch of barely labor law exclusive individuals to write for LTB. So that you're no longer the youngest one of the group.
And I'm a huge proponent of child labor. So.
No, it's just interesting, but as the oldest member of LTB, get wrecked. Jason already mentioned it. Which Denver Broncos are most likely to have a breakout? Are they going to break out as stars? How are we going to define breakout, right? Because there's a few different parameters there, but I'm going to go with players that have the opportunity to make a career paving pathway for themselves in the league this upcoming season, whether out of necessity or whether out of straight skill, or maybe they're going to be a breakout rookie season. All of those things are going to be discussed today. We're going to go in a particular order that I randomized a little bit earlier today. The draft is going to be a snake draft, so it's going to start with Jason. Jason, it was completely randomized, but you're welcome. Joey, myself, Zach, then it'll snake back. Zach, myself, Joey, and Jason. And we'll get this thing started. I already know that probably everything I'm going to pick is going to get poached, so I'm not looking forward to my draft position. I could have fudged the numbers, guys, but I kept it civil, and I went ahead and on the straightaway. So I want props. I want a round of applause for that one because I didn't cheat. So let it be known.
Unfortunately, Bree, that's the standard. I don't know what to tell you. We're not going to
That's the baseline.
Yeah. Thanks for doing your job. We appreciate it. Yeah.
Great work.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Jason. I appreciate that. You were supposed to stick up for me there. It would have given you brownie points, and I wouldn't have muted your mic when you weren't paying attention. Otherwise, let's get it started. Jason, you are the first. You'll get the first pick here, and then go ahead and explain your pick. We'll run off of that, and then we'll be posting these later too, so the LTB community and everybody over on Twitter can kind of get a vote in who did the best, right? Because Joey's already really competitive. He's been talking shit since he got in the green room. I don't appreciate it. So Jason, start us off strong and steal one of Joey's.
Okay. I think my first name, it's a little bit of a hot takey. I wasn't sure. I was hoping I could get him like third, then bounce back, but it's my guy. Can't let him off the board. I think this is going to upset Zach. I'm going to go with Kaden Sterns.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Kaden Sterns, first overall pick. Tell us why does Kaden Sterns stand out over the rest of the names on this list to you?
Okay, so you look at the roster. I was weighing the names. There's not a clear first. I mean, you could go. We didn't have a first round pick last 2 years, so you got to dive in a little. I was considering a few names. I'm not going to name any in particular because I might want them to fall in my next pick, but I think Kaden Sterns, it's a tough call because I thought he was going to break out 2 years ago and steal the job from Kareem Jackson, but then gets hurt, and then this year, same thing, he gets hurt again. But I think of the young talent on the roster, he might have the most talent other than like the clear Pat Surtain, Quinn Miners. And so it's a bit of calling my shot, but I think he's going to start this year, steal one of those starting spots. And I think of the options on the roster, he's probably the best one here.
Okay. Wow. That Jason, I gotta be honest with you. I forgot about Kaden Sterns and he didn't make my list.
Really?
He didn't make my list of 8, and this was like a brain work trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
So I will say this is an interesting one. This is a very interesting one here. Kaden Sterns undoubtedly has the talent to do it. I think you make a great point with that. Out of the names on this list, I'm hard-pressed to be like, this player has a lot more talent than Kaden Sterns does. That's definitely something I can't argue with whatsoever. It's just the injuries to me. That's the one thing I will say. coming off the injury. I used to think when I saw Adrian Peterson come back from his torn ACL and have 2,000 rushing yards, I started thinking that was the standard. I was walking around like, it's a torn ACL, get over it. But since I started seeing some of these Broncos recently, I don't know anymore, man. These knee injuries, these injuries are a little more serious than I thought. So this is an interesting one, and I get your point because of the talent level there. If there is a player to bet on, Kaden Sterns is a good bet. I'm not mad at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, Bree. This is a tough one for me because it would make me mad if not for the injury. I think I agree with everything you said about his talent. The opportunity is clearly there. I think Brandon Jones is one of those spots locked down, but the other one is an open competition. It's tough for me with Kaden Sterns because I don't know if he's fully healthy. It is him. It is him. Like, he is the right answer here. But it's a big if he's healthy. Looking at I wanted to pull up really quick.
I know Zach's trying to win the game because he's been singing Kaden Sterns crazy.
Yeah, literally.
I said I know Zach's trying to win this game here because he's been singing Kaden Sterns.
Well, I'm mad because it was one of mine. Friend of the program.
I've been saying this whole off season.
That's true.
He has been saying it. All of us have been saying it, and I also fall into the camp where I'm a little bit concerned with not only having the hip being a plaguing injury, but also patella isn't really a normal injury to suffer, and it's just a unfortunate set of circumstances there. But I absolutely believe that Kaden has not only the raw skill set, but he's also shown that he should be the starter there. It's just unfortunate to know what kind of return he's going to see. So is 2024 the breakout season, or is 2025, right? He has to catch back up to NFL speed. He has to make sure that he's working well with those injuries. I wanted him to have big years every single time. It's just been kind of a nagging injury and sort of an upset from there. So I absolutely love the pick. Now I'm frustrated because I got to fill in my slot there, but I do think that injuries are a concern. But man, if Kaden Sterns has a good year, that's household name status for him, just because of purely how talented he is. So I love the pick. Zach, I know you were looking something up. What'd you find?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just got to defend myself from Joey here. I'm worried about the patellar tendon thing. I've been worried about it since it happened. And I love Kaden Sterns, the player. I think he's an amazing player. I said the same thing go back to our roster preview show. I'm annoyed already. I'm a big fan of the player, but the injury is really, really scary. There's not many players, especially at the skill positions, that have suffered a torn patellar tendon and have come back strong. We've seen Cadillac Williams, his career ended early because of one of these. Ryan Williams, he had a good rookie year, dropped off hard right after that, the patellar tendon. Victor Cruz, one of the top receivers in the league, and then just fell off the face of the earth. Patellar tendon, actually had two. Gerard Mayo, super young head coach. I think he was just hired at 35. He's been coaching for a few years. How did he get into coaching so early after being such a great linebacker? Patellar tendon. It's really unfortunate. The medical advances keep getting better and better. To Joey's point about Adrian Peterson, ACLs were a career death knell. And then all of a sudden, Adrian Peterson ran for 2,100 yards on it. So it's possible he comes back looking great. I think it's also possible this is a Javonte Williams situation. I see the upside there, so I definitely see why you picked him, but it's a scary one for me.
All right. So I have number 2 pick. Am I on the clock, Brie? Can
you are on the clock. The clock started the minute Zach stopped talking, so let's be serious.
Thank God he stopped talking because I have some shit to say. No, I am going with Marvin Mims.
That's so unnecessary.
I don't know.
Brutal.
Yeah. Well, you guys interrupted. You guys, all of you interrupted the best pick of the draft. Marvin Mims is the second pick here. Breakout season incoming for a couple of reasons. He's going to have all the opportunity this year to do it. I think that's crucial, right? I don't think he's going to have a ton of competition there or someone that can even really beat him out. He's going to get his snaps regardless, just based off where the Broncos picked him, and then also the talent left on the Broncos team with Jerry Jeudy now gone. So, and then pairing that with the talent, because Marvin Mims has all of the natural ability to be a good wide receiver in the NFL. Obviously, he had to improve his route tree, how he is as a route runner and stuff like that. But I don't see him as a player that is incapable of it, like I've seen other players in the NFL, where I can look at you and be like, man, he's just stiff. I don't know what I can do with him as a route runner. Can he get open? I'm not sure. Marvin Mims doesn't have that issue. I think it's more of an experience issue. It's more of a, hey, I need to get my reps issue. And I think all considered, he had a fairly good rookie season for what I expected. He was a deep threat, and not only was he a quote-unquote deep threat, because we hear that so much of that in the NFL, and then they really don't catch any deep balls. They're just fast. Marvin Mims was successful at it. He made contested catches down the field. He has good hands, and he outran people. Tracked the football well downfield. He showed us he can do that. So I think it's just rounding out the rest of his game for me, and that might come this year. I think he's probable to have a breakout year in consideration to what he had last year.
Joey, I don't want to say you went with like the obvious pick there, but that's a pretty obvious pick. So I appreciate it. And Zach can tell you why you're wrong, because I think that's coming up next.
Yeah, so I like the pick a lot. He was definitely on my short list. I think there's definitely reason why he's a good breakout candidate this year. That said, I think unlike Kaden Sterns is, where's the injury at? But we've seen it on tape. We know how good of a player he is. I don't think that same can be said for Marvin Mims. I think the potential there is very exciting. I think Joey did a good job outlining that, but it is potential. Last year, he was a good deep threat and I use this stat a lot because I think it's a kind of scary one and it jumps out at you. His win rates against man coverage, against zone coverage were nearly identical to Jalen Reagor. And I don't mean like rookie Jalen Reagor. I mean Jalen Reagor now, which is not obviously a name you want to be compared to often. So I think that's very concerning. And he does have to develop the route tree a lot. We saw him kind of used last year just as that deep threat and then a gadget player. And so I think his utilization at least was a good bit off from normal down to down receiver. Again, I love the pick. I think there's a very good chance he realizes that, but I do think it is a lot of projection.
Zach, I have a rebuttal. How much of that do you think is his inability to do so, or how much of it is just experience in the NFL?
I don't think Corey Coleman was physically incapable of running good routes, but then we kind of saw that hamstring his entire career.
Yeah. No, I definitely think there's a work ethic thing there, but that's just something as a scout we can't really project. I think as we go down the rest of this list, you're going to start to see a lot of physical incapability, just things that players can't do. And I just want to throw that out there. So when you take your next pick here, anyways,
he can absolutely do. He's absolutely got the athletic capability. But Jason, what do you think? I'm sorry.
What's up?
What do you think?
He wants you to tell how great my pick was and all, all the obvious stuff.
If you said Sterns wasn't on your board, Mims was not very high on my board. Wow. I had him at 8. So, yeah, I think there's a strong chance he's in the NFL for 5+ years. He's a deep threat that you can send down the field. He's going to be a valuable asset with the new return game, but there's no reason for me to believe he could be anything more than that. He was strictly pretty much a deep threat in college. We saw last year he hit a few early in the season and then he died down. There was opportunity, especially with Tim Patrick down, for him to take a bigger role, and he kind of didn't. Lil Jordan Humphrey was out snapping him some games. I mean, I think he could do it, but I wouldn't bet on it. He's a smaller frame. He hasn't shown not anything. He's shown very clearly that he could be a deep threat, but I just don't know if he can get to that next level. Where back to my number 1 pick, Kaden Sterns, I'm very confident that he can play to the level of this high of a selection, where Mims might tap out at a 700-yard player. But I was going to say, if Bree pointed out, you picked the Caleb Williams of this draft, I picked Michael Penix. So
I like the relation.
yeah, it popped in my head because the reaction was everyone's jaw dropped. I was like, okay, setting the tone first show. Gotta come out with a bang.
Yeah, you put us all off balance over here. Well, obviously Sean Payton has been complimentary of what Marvin Mims will be capable of doing, and he's specifically highlighted the growth that we'll see from season 1 to season 2. And I think that's why nationally Marvin Mims is ranked the top breakout candidate across the national platforms, as we're seeing that sort of catch on fire. And as we know here in Broncos country, the higher you put the expectations, the farther and the harder you might fall. But I have a pretty good feeling about that Marvin Mims pick. And so far, this draft is off to a great start. If you haven't already, go ahead and like the stream. If you're watching over on Twitter, stop that, come on over to YouTube so you can join the chat and participate along with us. We're over on Let's Talk Broncos, and I guess I can stop vamping a little bit so I can get to my pick, which I am now wildly discomforted by. Guys, I have a couple here on the list. They're not tiered in any specific way. You guys, I think all of them need this for a variety of reasons. I'm going to go Zack Allen, though, as this being the breakout season.
So you think he goes even crazier this year?
I think he goes even higher because the continuity and the addition of a couple of extra hands there, mostly with the addition of Franklin Myers, will be able to take off some of that pressure from Zack Allen, who will be able to perform at a higher level. I believe his efficiency, not only in pass rush, but in run blocking run defense was just a lot to take away from as a positive inclination towards what he can actually be. Now, 2 seasons with the Broncos, I think the trajectory is anywhere. It's just going to skyrocket. So, a shaky start. Let's not get twisted. Training camp, there was a lot of, ooh, that's exciting. Preseason was bad. But through the last 14 games, he was able to finish strong. And I anticipate not only a consistent showing from Allen, but I think it's going to cement him as one of the top defensive ends in the league. And I don't feel shy saying that, only because I think that the progression will be there. And I think that the more of the doubt was placed on the cost of the contract there and not really the ability of the player. Joey, you have been talking of Zack Allen, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say on this pick to knock it down a peg.
I'll tell you, I'll speak for all of us, okay? Because I don't think we have to go round table. I think it's that he already had his breakout season. That's what I think my rebuttal here is to this pick. I think Zack Allen, you're right. I have sung his praises many times here on this podcast because I thought he was one of the best defensive players on the Broncos last year. And I think you could make the case, like, pound for pound, it was him, Simmons. There was a couple guys. There wasn't many, and Surtain. Like, there wasn't many guys part of the defense where I was like, game to game, you were a baller. And Zack Allen was after his first 3 weeks in this Broncos defense. He was a really good football player. Just, I don't think as noticeable because of the defensive line or the rest of the defensive front, like you mentioned, Bree. I just don't know if that actually changes how he plays. So that's why I would say that's my argument there.
I'm seeing stats going up. I'm seeing sacks going up. I just see it getting better with more help. Zach.
I don't think that's that far-fetched. Now, I will agree with Joey. I think the tough bit with this one is the bar is so much higher for him to climb. We laid out Marvin Mims' flaws. Part of the beauty in that is if Marvin Mims becomes a well-rounded down-to-down wide receiver you can rely on and is more than just a deep threat, he's broken out to an extent. Kaden Sterns, if he solidifies starting role and is a good starter, he's broken out to an extent. Zack Allen, I think, is going to have to be a star, borderline superstar player to live up to this. Now, I think the argument for it is he has gotten better every single year of his career. We talk about how, I keep saying this, but development isn't linear. Zack Allen, one of the players where it looks to be. Like Jalen Hurts is another one that stood out to me, where it's like every year since his freshman year at Alabama, he's just gotten like a little bit better and better and better. And I think that finally kind of fell off in 2023. But Zack Allen, every year he's gotten in the league, or he's been in the league, he's gotten more pressures than the year before. just steady climb up that list. Last year, working on the interior for a Broncos team that was like really blitz heavy because they weren't able to just normally manufacture pressure, he led the team in pressures. You wouldn't expect that. Like with blitz happy teams, you tend to see like cornerbacks and linebackers and whatnot steal these pressures because they're oftentimes the people that aren't accounted for in the blitz game. So again, for him to do that, I think is really impressive. He was right up there. His career high in sacks was 5.5. He got 5 last year, but career high in pressures, career high in quarterback hits, career high in pass rush win rate. And again, it's been a linear uptick throughout there or like throughout his career. And I don't think he's a guy that's like athletically tapped out. I think he's a pretty phenomenal athlete. I think his strength is something that really stands out to me in particular. Yeah, there is more there. It's just, I think it's going to be a high bar for him to clear.
And I think I understand that in the way of that. I think household name wise, top of the position wise, I think that there's still a lot of room for growth and riding that momentum from such a shaky start. I just think that it bodes well, but I'm also a sucker for continuity and the year-to-year change that we could see just from him having the stability in Vance Joseph once again. And then minds like Jim Leonard out there, although he's defensive backs. Jason, talk to me a little bit about this pick, and then we're going to throw it directly over to Zack for his, and we'll continue to speed through these because that's what we're known for, right? All right, Jason.
Yeah. I pretty much am just, my thoughts are what they said already. I think every year with Arizona, he got incrementally better. And then with Denver, I was like, this is a good signing, but we might have overpaid. He takes another step this year. So, and last year he was, I would say, a top 10 defensive lineman, down lineman. And now the tough thing is I wasn't sure if I could say he's going to take another step from that, because from there you're talking maybe even an all-pro. So I think he's just a tier below that. So that was the tough call for me, but absolutely, I don't think it's far-fetched at all. I can totally see him making that jump. I just wasn't sure if I could put him high enough to make that jump to get there. But I could totally see it. He's probably like, he's a top 5 player on the team right now. So another jump, he's going to be even higher, and I could see it.
Thanks, Jason, for not shitting all over my pick. Zack, it's your turn. Go ahead and give us your first breakout candidate.
Now, Marvin Mims.
Jason, don't get me started about your Kaden Sterns. And let me tell you, I'm a huge Kaden Sterns guy, but I don't get going.
I love that Jason's taking a shot at Joey for me here, but unfortunately, I might be taking a bit of a shot at his pick here. My first overall selection here, I'm going PJ Locke. I'm going with the other safety as the breakout. I agree with like pretty much the exact same premise that Jason laid out. I think he's going to have the opportunity to do so. Emerge. KAD's not on my list, although I'm a big fan. But I think this is the year that Locke emerges as a quality starting safety. He's another guy that I think has gotten a little bit better every single year of his career. He's thrived in every single role we've seen him in. And this is getting a little overlooked, I feel. I think in part because maybe we want to block out the back half of last season. But PJ Locke is a huge part of the reason the Broncos defense turned it around in the first place, and they got on that run. The turnaround happened in the Green Bay game. That's the game when Kareem Jackson got ejected and was removed from the starting lineup. And from that point on, PJ Locke took over. And I don't think it's as simple as PJ Locke entered the starting lineup and the defense got good. But that's when the switch was flipped for the Broncos, was that week. And I don't think it's pure coincidence that it overlaps with when PJ Locke entered the lineup. He's a ball hawk. The two people we've had on this show that are going to camp so far, like during this offseason already for the Broncos, are Benjamin Albright and Henry Chisholm. Albright came on here and compared him to what was it? The Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. His quote here, I actually have it written down because I'm working on an article about the breakout players on defense. He said, PJ Locke, I think, is going to have a breakout year. I think this is the year he's going to get some national recognition. He's the guy who keeps picking off Zach Wilson. He's the other safety. He's going to be the guy opposite Brandon Jones. So it's going to be fun and interesting to watch him, because the last couple of years, we've all kind of seen him in micro doses, and we've seen him have a nose for the football. I always hate to invoke names, but Tyrann Mathieu is always around the football, and PJ's kind of got that same thing where he's always around the ball. Which lofty praise. And then Hank came on here and said he was the best player on the defensive side of the ball for the Broncos at camp. So I think we've seen the past evidence of it. The right now reports look really, really promising. And unlike Sterns, he doesn't have the injury. So that's why he's the pick there for me. I'm sorry, Jason.
No, it's okay. It's fair. Totally. I mean, PJ was very good last year. I like him a lot. I think that'll be one of the most interesting competitions of camp between Sterns and Locke, and then Johnson's probably starting next to them. I can see it. It's just, I think you have to understand, I had the first overall pick. I couldn't take a shot on PJ Locke. He's 27 right now. I had to go for a little upside. Yeah. And so how much of a breakout can you really have at that age? He's 27. He's been on the roster a while now. I could see him being a very solid safety, but if Sterns hits, I think he could have a tier above that. Is all.
Yeah. Look at
I like the pick.
Look at Bree and Zach taking these old guys. Jason and I are taking actual breakout players.
Exactly.
Blasphemy. Absolute blasphemy. I don't respect it. I don't love it. And I think Zach's spot on with this. Friend of the program, PJ Locke, coming in for not only a enjoyable story for his path to the NFL, but also his passions, his whys, the tutelage that he's received from Kareem Jackson and Justin Simmons. All of these things are the perfect storm for one hell of a season. And, barring staying healthy, I don't see why that's not a huge possibility. Definitely thought it would have gotten stolen prior to me going. Yeah, like it feels right to me. I would have made the same pick.
Who's on the clock?
Thank you.
Am I up again? It can't.
I am. I'm on the
Zach
clock.
is.
I can go with mine.
God.
Joey is getting in my head a little bit here. I was looking at who could be the youngest Bronco on my draft board to take. Really quick, I noticed while doing that, Marvin Mims, credit to Joey on this, Marvin Mims is freaky young. He is younger than several members of the Broncos rookie class. He's 22 right now. He's 2 years younger than Bo Nix, for example. So good on you there. I'm torn between two. I'm going Nick Bonito. I'm going Nick Bonito here.
That's wild.
Bonito.
Nick Bonito?
I like it.
I'm going Nick Bonito. I think you can make a strong case for Baron Browning here too. I saw a comment. I'm not going to say the name, but I saw a comment for Baron Browning earlier, and I think there's a good case for him being that breakout guy. He's got all the talent in the world. It feels like he just has to stay healthy. But I think Nick Bonito is the better pick. I think he's so far been the better pass rusher in his career, which I think is, I don't know, it's getting overlooked. I think because Baron Browning's flashes are so exciting. But just last year, here I'm trying to get the stats. I thought that, that Nick Bonito was considerably better. Just like looking at per snap, because their snap counts were a fair bit different. Nick Bonito, by the way, second on the team in pressures behind Zack Allen, and only a little bit behind him. Allen had 27, Bonito had 24. But we had Bonito creating a pressure once every 21.8 snaps. Baron Browning was one every 44.6, so more than twice as bad. And Jonathan Cooper was once every 38 snaps. And then the sack rates, you see the same thing. Bonito is generating a sack once every 65.5 snaps. His 8 sacks were only half a sack behind Jonathan Cooper, who had the team lead on double the snap count. Anyways, average a sack once every 65.5 snaps, Browning once every 99.1, and Cooper once every 98.4. So Browning and Cooper are kind of in that same ballpark. I also think we've seen a bit more of them. Bonito, I think, has separated already from just a little bit, not a ton, but has already separated a bit from them. And I think his trajectory is more promising. I think the leap he took from his rookie year to his second year was so tremendous that I'm very, very excited to see what he could look like in year 3, especially considering I think you can already argue he was sneakily under the radar, the team's best edge rusher last season.
Best pass rusher. I think that's
yes.
That's
edge rusher
factor there. And that's where I'm going to throw this back to Zack here, is like with Nick Bonito. Yes, like I thought he was a really good pass rusher last year. So asking him to take yet another step forward, we're talking about an 8-sack guy this last year, right? So what does a breakout season look like for a player that I think, just through conversations left on this podcast before, who we were kind of out on as a run defender? Like, are you saying that this could possibly be like a 16-sack guy? Like, is that what the breakout season looks like for him, or what is that?
For me, the breakout season is kind of what you're hitting on right there. Like, he's been a designated pass rusher type, and I think the breakout is him going out of that and becoming a little bit more of a down-to-down edge rusher. And again, I don't think it would be a ton. The Broncos have 5 guys, or I guess you remove, or no, but then they added Jonah Ellis. So yeah, I think they've got 5 guys on rookie contracts right now in the edge room. There's going to be a pretty fair split there. But Nick Bonito was healthy all year last year and played like half as many snaps as Jonathan Cooper. I think that that's the potential for a breakout, being a more regular contributor to the defense. Instead, like Baron Browning played half the season. Like, because I know you're going to say, well, Jonathan Cooper's much better against the run. I don't think Baron Browning's that good of a run defender. Better than Bonito, sure, but I don't think he's that great in that aspect of the game. He played half the season and had like as many snaps as Bonito, who played the whole season. That's where I think the breakout is.
Interesting. Yeah, I just don't have Bonito being reliable run defender on my bingo card for this next season, if I'm being honest with you. That's kind of like where where I was going earlier with the physical incapabilities. I think with Bonito, he does have some physical incapabilities there. I think it takes special freaky athlete to overcome it. Von Miller-esque, like type stuff that we've seen where Von was just at a lighter size, that type of size, but also able to set an edge just through amazing technique and athleticism. I do think Nick can get better there. And you're totally right about him not having much competition in that aspect. But I think like where just because he doesn't have much competition doesn't mean that if I get better competition in here after the season, like he won't still just be a pass rush specialist type guy. I ultimately think that's his role in the NFL. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. I think a pass rush specialist is super important to have, especially when you're as good as Nick Bonito. I just think personally, and I had him up on my list too, I just think his breakout comes in a different way where it comes through, okay, now we're looking at a guy that's, having a 14 sack season or something like that. He's way up there in pressures and he's down there every passing down and he's causing havoc every single time. I think that's the more realistic route for him to have a breakout season than him becoming a good run defender.
I think that's true too. And I also wouldn't say he's a good run defender, but I do think he can, like I said with Baron Browning, who I don't think is a great run defender and play just as many snaps in half the time. Got so a snap rate twice as high. I don't think he's such a better run defender that it justifies that snap disparity. Especially once both were healthy and so many more of the snaps were going to Baron Browning. That's where I think, like, I don't think there's 64 edge defenders that are like solid, that are getting solid playing time that are good against the run. I guess, like, I don't think I think a lot of teams are playing guys that are good against the run and maybe limited as pass rushers, like Jonathan Cooper, or good pass rushers that are limited against the run. And of course, there's guys that are like solid at both or great at both, even sprinkled around the league. But I do think there are a lot of guys getting solid playing time in edge rooms like the Broncos that don't have a Myles Garrett or a TJ Watt that's just going to get all the snaps. That can be a little deficient in one area. Like, I think Jonathan Cooper is a pass rusher and still see, though maybe that's not the best example, but still see playing time just because there's a need for them there. Though I would also agree, I think Bonito's always going to be somewhat of a liability in the run. That's never going to be his specialty. He's got to become an elite pass rusher for him to fully break out the way I'm envisioning there. I think he's on the cusp of that. Last thing I'll say, he had 13 tackles for loss last year, and his missed tackle rate dropped in half, which I think is promising for his hopes as a run defender, because he's never going to be great at holding the point of attack. He's going to have to be a gap shooter. But I do think we saw progress, or a lot of progress, from 2022 to 2023 in that regard.
I think I'm seeing a trend here with LTB. I wonder if we can keep it going. A lot of talk of breakout candidates on the defensive side of the ball, which is interesting regarding the conversation and the narrative surrounding whether or not they'll take some steps back. But if all of our players are defensive players, what are we really doing here? I'm going to keep it rolling, though, because I have to stay true to pattern. Riley Moss has been on my radar now here for quite a long time, and I'm going to go with him. Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos are stockpiling cornerbacks. We got Wallace, McMillan, Mathis, Moss, and I know I'm leaving them off because there's a lot of them, but a breakout season isn't just hope here for Riley Moss. It's a necessity. After battling through injury and combating all the narratives from his draft position, I think the key to Moss's success will be snaps, and if he gets a lot of them, all the tangibles are there, the football IQ, the physicality, and Sean Payton has been complimentary of all the football qualities, but highlighting grit for Moss, I think, speaks volumes as he battles back not only for a spot, but the type of season that paves the way for the remainder of his career. If it doesn't happen in 2024, I think we can write this one off. I think this one's a necessity. I'm banking on it. I hope to see it. And that's because there's still a lot of question marks with the defensive back, specifically CB group. There's a lot of them, but we don't necessarily know who's going to take that next step. So go ahead, take me down a notch on that second pick. Joey.
I want to give it to Jason. Jason, let us know what's going on here with this one. Do you like it? Do you not like it?
I like it, but I'm skeptical of it. He was not on my board, but I agree that
Jason's board.
my board has my eighth name, which I don't think will be pulled out, is crazy, but I like the player. But we'll get to that at the end.
Yeah.
But I think he's arguably, if you want the Broncos to win games in 2024, he might be the most important breakout, because if you look at that DB room, you have cornerback 1 locked down. Cornerback 2 is questionable. It's either him or Levi Wallace, who was not that good last year. So the hope, I was saying all offseason, you have to give Riley Moss a chance to win that job, because we've been spending picks. Looks like Drew Sanders is going to be nothing. Marvin Mims is going to have room to take a jump. You need these young guys to grow in their roles and become contributors. So I'm not necessarily sure he does it, because it's a little worrisome with he couldn't play over Moreau or Mathis last year, but I hope he can, and it's really important. But I like the pick because it's a really important breakout, but I'm just a little skeptical on if he can actually do it based on what he's shown.
Yeah. I'm ultimately in the same boat. I thought this was a good one. I ultimately, this one was higher up on the rest of my players as well that I have available. And you know why I like it, Pri? It's going to get into mine later. Because he didn't do a damn thing last year. That's why.
Exactly.
If he does anything, he's having a breakout season. That's why. That's why this is a good pick. If he touches the field this year, man, he's breaking out in comparison to what he had last year.
It's all that balance with my picks.
The only thing that could make it where he doesn't have a breakout season is if he goes out there and he just literally sucks, or if he loses the job from the beginning. If he is just even mid breakout season incoming, that's a W. It just is what it is.
If he's at 75 overall, my fault.
Yeah, that's a
breakout. If he's at 75 overall, that's a breakout. Yeah,
it is.
You guys are ridiculous.
And I think that's fair. I would just say we're talking about one of the hardest positions to play in all of sports, and we haven't seen the guy play it at all at the NFL level.
It's the selling point for the breakout player.
You got to put your chips in.
Yeah, no, it's good. The bar is low, but it's like, a lot of 3rd round picks just can't play, and like I think there's a chance that that's where Riley Moss is. Now I'll say all the reports we're getting throughout training camp throughout this off season seem very positive. I'm feeling optimistic about where Riley Moss is going to be. But yeah, it's a roll of the dice. It's a gamble for sure.
Okay. All right, Bree. I think with the names left on the board, this is a very solid pick. I don't know. I can't be very critical of it.
No,
He's
yeah,
definitely on my list.
it's a rough board right now.
Yeah.
Well, good luck then, Joey, because you're on the clock.
Can I get like a
One of my
draft
favorites still available.
or whatever?
Get
No.
up the
But thanks
music,
for asking. We don't let Joey hit the music button because it'll just loop endlessly.
Okay, I'm taking a page out of Bree's book, but I think it's even better because I'm going with Alex Forsyth at center. And the same deal here. It's the exact same deal here. He didn't do anything last year. He's the projected starter this year. The only difference between you and I's pick, Bree, is that Alex Forsyth is competing with Luke Wattenberg. Well, there's guys that have actually done stuff in the NFL competing with Riley Moss. So I think, like, here's the thing. Like, Alex Forsyth, if he starts half the season, this is good news for my pick here. This is a
breakout.
It's a breakout all day. He did literally nothing this last year. And I think he's slated to be the starter. And honestly, if I were to pull people in this and I said, who has a better chance at starting 16 games this next year, Luke Wattenberg or Riley Moss, I think the answer might be Forsyth or Riley Moss. I think the answer might be Forsyth, just because of the lack of competition. Who are you putting in for Forsyth? Who is the guy? Like, who's pulling him out of the lineup? Luke Wattenberg. Like, let's really wrap our head around that. So yeah, I think there's some breakout potential. He could be a 68 overall in Madden. Yeah.
This is so interesting because I think your argument against Bree is what my argument would be like for Bree against you. I think it's
I
so
didn't
much
have an argument against Bree.
So, well, I mean, against the Riley Moss pick. I think
I didn't have one. you misheard me then. Bree, did I not just praise you on this podcast?
You
to
just
be fair,
compared it to the Forsyth pick and said, well, he has a harder path. What are you talking about, Joey? That was your last point for 3 minutes.
You're saying why mine's a little bit ahead. Okay, continue.
Yeah.
I don't like that nobody's mentioning poor Luke. Not going to try to pronounce his last name because I haven't learned it yet. But
well, that's where I'm going with it.
I'm sorry, not
is a considerably
no, the other one, the rookie. They just drafted one too.
Oh,
Garuilo.
Oh, Garuilo.
Like
but he's a guard. I think he's a guard. I don't think he's a center.
He's listed as center depth. Well, who cares? Anyways, continue. So sorry, that was my fault.
I think he's O-line or whatever. It's something weird. He's listed as something. Anyways, I think it could be Gargiulo as well. But to that point, I think Gargiulo, Wattenberg, or Mustapher are all easier for me to envision starting games for the Broncos this year than any of Riley Moss's competition. Like Damari Mathis, I think a bounce back's possible. He was, I cited this last show, I'll cite it again, 112 out of 113 cornerbacks to play 250 snaps last year. In terms of passer rating allowed when targeted, coverage rate, he was absolutely terrible. We're going to have to see a massive turnaround for him to even be like startable. And then Levi Wallace is coming off the worst year of his career, where he allowed, I think there were 6 cornerbacks in the league that allowed more touchdowns than him. And just generally got torched by the Steelers. That's why they were so quickly willing to let him go. I don't think the Broncos want to start either of those guys. I think Luke Wattenberg starting over Alex Forsyth, fine answer, because he's a 7th round pick versus spending 2 third-rounders on Riley Moss. If Gargiulo starts in front of him, that's fine, because you spent very comparable draft capital on both Gargiulo and Forsyth. If Mustapher starts in front of him, that's even okay. Because again, you've spent so little in Forsyth. If a 7th round pick doesn't pan out, no sweat. I think there's way less pressure to start Forsyth than there is for Moss. I generally would agree on both your points. I think these are fine picks, but I think the Moss one is a little better for actually the reason you used.
Okay, Zach, the issue why I can't validate this point is because we had a podcast just literally, what was it, Friday? Where we were talking about the cornerbacks, and then the Friday before that, we talked about the centers. And we were making arguments for Damari Mathis being good, and you've been a proponent of maybe it's very possible he has a breakout season, or not a breakout season, a better season. Yeah, this next season. You want to know, well, you mentioned these two cornerbacks. You want to know what Forsyth's competition has done? Luke Wattenberg has done nothing. Like that's the point. He's done absolutely nothing. He's been in the system for the Broncos for a bit and still has done nothing. While he was still drafted in the same draft as Damari Mathis, I'm pretty sure, he still has done nothing. While Damari Mathis has gotten playing time and plenty of opportunities to play. The year before that, he started a good majority of the season, and then he started the season this last year. Luke Wattenberg has not played a down, not a single down. Like, is that not saying something? Like, it's not like the Broncos secondary has been terrible. or it has been terrible, and Damari Mathis has gotten his opportunity. Like that's the point.
Wattenberg's played a very comparable amount to Damari Mathis over their NFL careers, so I don't think that argument holds water at all. He played 200. He played like 500 snaps on the offensive line last year. He played like 250 at center.
I have such a hard time wrapping. How many games did Cushenberry miss?
No, he played guard for Miners a good amount.
Maybe I'm thinking 2 years ago he played center, but I was looking at the snap counts because I was curious. Like in my article, I was talking about Forsyth. I was like, how many snaps has like the rest of this room played at center? No, he had 100 last year. I think he had like 400 the year before. Where's that? No, he actually, I'm way off on my count. Anyways. Yeah, so he does have very, very little playing time. I want to correct that point. Joey's right there.
Thank you.
He has played 140 snaps. 140 snaps over the last 2 years, which is 140 more than Alex Forsyth. I would say that. I also think his playing time has been more solid. And as for like what he's done, he's solidified himself as the Broncos' favorite reserve option on the interior of the offensive line. They had, I don't know how many offensive linemen they carried last year, but they had their three starters on the interior. Wattenberg was number 4.
Starting Wattenberg or Forsyth,
and then they lose one of those top 3.
Zach,
I don't think it's crazy that Wattenberg.
You're making an argument here. Who do you have starting at the beginning of the year?
I think Forsyth has like a 70% chance. I think Moss has like an 80% chance. And my whole argument is that Moss is more likely, which I stand by. I think Forsyth is the most likely center option. I think Moss is considerably more likely to be the starting outside cornerback opposite Surtain than Forsyth is to be the starting center.
Fair enough.
All right, Jason.
This is a tough debate for me because for Joey, I had Forsyth third on my board. So, because I think the one thing you guys are forgetting, a big part of this, to me at least, is our quarterback is Bo Nix. And I personally want them to do everything to make him comfortable. And if that means it's playing with a center who he's comfortable with, then I'd rather him start than anyone else. But also, when I said I had a crazy name for my 8th spot, it was Luke Wattenberg, because I feel he played really well last year in reserve for Quinn Miners, that against the Chargers when he came out. I thought he played well, and he's still young. So I like both of the names here. So I don't really have a side, but I think you both have valid points.
Okay, very interesting.
Jason, that's fine, but now you have to throw out Luke Wattenberg as your final pick for your draft.
No. Definitely not.
Who's your pick?
This is me running to the stand, to Goodell, whatever, hitting the call. When I said I was between Sterns and one other player, I'm going to take Baron Browning here. He was number 2 on my board.
Fair enough.
So when you were going over Bonito and you brought up Browning, I was like, I want him. But you brought up good points. I just think with Bonito, it's tough because you guys mentioned this. I don't think you could ever have him as a 3-down player. He's just too tiny. And I don't think he has a strong enough base. Where Browning is similarly sized, and he's not a great run defender, but he
He's
sets
more
the edge. Yeah, exactly. He can anchor a little more, which I think is huge because if you're going against a Orlando Brown type, you can't have Bonito on the field there. Where Browning, I think you could, and I think he's just as freaky of an athlete. Now it's the same. I'm building the all injury team here because it's not quite Sterns level, but he has equal concerns. But I think he has like top tier upside, maybe the step below like the Garrett's. He's probably not there, but besides that, I think he can be that level of player, and he's been on the field. I can trust him enough to defend the run, even if I don't love it. And I think he could be a freaky pass rusher. So he was number 2 on my board. So I feel really good about this pick. My board, I still have 5 players on of the 8. So my board was just way off from you guys, but I feel good about the 2 players I came away with.
Yeah, no, I had Barron high up on my list as well. For the same reasons you have. I just think, like, just looking at them, I think you made a great point about their base, right? Like, that's important. Where Nick Bonito lacks in, like, leg build and stuff like that, Bonito is a lot of leg, small waist. Like, they're different built players, and obviously your core strength, it's going to come when you're setting an edge. You need that leg strength for sure. I don't think Barron's like a great run defender, but I think he has a tick up in potential to be one, while, like you said, having great athleticism as well. And he's strung together some moves in the NFL where it's like, holy shit, like we could get that out of you more often. Whoa, like that was freaky. I think a big reason the Broncos traded Bradley Chubb at the time was because it's like, yeah, we have this Baron Browning kid in the wings who's ready to play right away. Like we really believe in this guy. I mean, he has had some games in the NFL. Who remembers that Colts game?
That's the game that comes to mind.
Whew. Like he's had some freaky games in the NFL. It's just like you said, the injuries. If he could stay healthy for an entire season, out of all the players we've listed so far, I think Barron has the most natural gifts and talent. Like I really do, at a really important position in the NFL. It's just how long are we going to continue to see the injuries? It's been every single season since he's been in the NFL so far. His rookie season, missed all of the offseason, had to come in as an inside linebacker. And then last year, obviously, missed time. Like he's missed a ton of time in the NFL. So, I don't know. I mean, it's a good pick there, especially for the last pick. I was shocked. Mm-hmm. I have some names on here where I'm like, damn, I didn't want him at all. So, yeah.
No, I think it's a really good pick. I think we went different ways on like the edge breakout, the safety breakout, but both have a great chance. I think if everyone stays totally, like if we could just, I don't know, guarantee them a perfect bill of health. I think it would be Browning, and I think it would be Sterns. It's just, the big injury question, as Joey just highlighted.
Yeah,
totally.
Awesome. But what a fun show. Jason, first and foremost, thanks for joining us for sure. A rendition of Wednesday's Let's Talk Broncos. I did want to ask that everyone go check out yesterday's episode of the Altitude Adjustment on Let's Talk Broncos. Super Bowl champ Brandon Marshall joined the show, and that conversation was absolutely fun, remarkable, and had a really good time. I listened to the whole show. I hardly listened to a whole show of ours. I'm just kidding. I'm just making jokes because I get nervous up here. But it was a really fun episode. You got to watch us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the Thursday show. Joey and Zach hop on Fridays and scare me thinking I'm missing a live program. We're on every single day of the week. And as we ramp up for the season, you'll see more of us. Christopher Hart said, nice to see Jason on the show. There's so many people interacting with us. We really appreciate everyone chiming in and talking. So join us tomorrow for the Thursday show. I assume that there will be an announcement about a Friday stream. But Jason, I want you to kind of give us a recap of how you're feeling about today's show. And not a long one, but, give us how you feel. And hype anything you've got going on, man. You're a busy dude.
Yeah, let the people know where to follow you and everything like that, man.
For sure. Yeah, it was a great show. I mean, for the listeners, I was telling them before, this is my first actual show. So it was really exciting. I think it went well. And if you guys want to check me out, you can follow me at Jason Bishop NFL. And obviously I'll be having content on Let's Talk Broncos website and whatnot. So follow channel. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the support.
Honestly, it's pretty special, Jason. You joined the show and Zach didn't mute himself once. I don't know if that's making up for Monday where it happened 2 times, but we appreciate you and the great mojo that you brought this evening. Yeah, I think that'll do it from us. Have a great night, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow.
Go Broncos.
Go.